Hello and welcome back to Suspended Animation. I am your host, Dennis Patholkis, and this is Umbrella Academy Season 1. Basically, I'm just doing the entire season all as just one video because it's hard to break it down episode by episode, to tell you the truth, especially for a Netflix series. Yes, you're probably saying, but you do this for Future Man. Future Man drops all at once. Future Man's a different animal entirely. Not that many people are watching Future Man. Netflix people, gobble this stuff up all in one big, thing, one big viewing, if you will. So it's a little easier to talk about it all as one big movie rather than trying to break it out episode by episode. And I'm also going to be talking a bit about the differences between this and the comic. I mean, I'm not going to spoil the comic for you guys. You guys can actually go and read that. It's been out for a while, since I believe 2007. So yeah, it's been out there for over 10 years now. And it's good. I mean, the comic is good. And I know there's just been a recent installment that came out, the latest story, if you will. So before I start, if I can get to it, there it is. Spoiler alert, I am going to be spoiling some of the stuff in there. So if you haven't gone and seen Umbrella Academy on Netflix, go and watch it. Come on back here. This will be a video. You can comment down in the comment section, all that good stuff. Thank you to Viking Bitch for the paddle. And hey, everybody in the chat. Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be breaking it down episode by episode, like I said. It's going to be more free form, if you will, on this one. And, let's just start with what happened here in the comics. So the two comics here that we've got, that's what it's based off of. It's based off of the Apocalypse Suite, and Dallas is what it's called. So that's the first one. That's the second one. And there was really no way they were going to be able to do the comics justice, because not on the budget that they had. And I don't even know, if they could have done it with any budget, to tell you the truth, because it's pretty big in the storylines there. And the person, Steve Blackman, I believe his name is the showrunner of this one. And he even talked about this in an interview. I actually read the interview that he did. And he said, and this isn't really spoiling anything, but there was a scene in the comics, in the very first comic, Apocalypse Suite, that had a sentient Eiffel Tower that the kids were fighting. Yes, a sentient Eiffel Tower, if that makes. And he said there was no way they could ever do that. He goes, that would just blow our entire budget right there, just doing that. And so that's what he said. That he had to change things, and he grounded this into the more mundane world instead of making it the fantastical world of the comics. Also in the comics, Hargreaves is he's a philanthropist. He's basically someone who has changed the world, and there was a little hint of it in the TV, in the series, the Netflix series. There's also another secret that Hargreaves has that people probably got confused by, because they never really said anything about it in the Netflix series. You see Hargreaves, I believe it's around like episode 6 or 7, consoling a woman who's dying in bed, and you see rockets taking off and leaving behind him, and he's got this box that he opens up, and there's something, light that travels out, and we see him coming into Ellis Island. When we had all the influx of immigrants coming in the early 1900s, and they kind of got around that, they danced around it, but Hargreaves is an alien. Yeah, so that Reginald Hargreaves, yes. So they really didn't go that route. It was kind of a weird thing. They didn't say it out loud, and I'm wondering if they're just saving it for season 2 or what. It just he's not a time traveler. He's an alien. They might change it, Stanley Tweedle, to time traveler. But in the book, he's actually an alien. because they there's another revelation in this series where number 5, who's a time traveler, he can travel through time, says, how did Hargreaves know that we were banded together to stop the apocalypse? How did he know that the apocalypse was coming? How did he know what date it was? That kind of thing. And there's all kinds of revelations here. So yeah, I'm wondering if they are just going to make him a time traveler at that point, or if he's just going to be a descendant of number 5, which would be kind of a weird thing too. They might change it that way as well. Viking Bitch says, if Hargreaves is an alien, that would explain some things. It makes him more than a one-dimensional dick. Yeah. Stanley Tweedle. I forgot the books too. I actually had to read through, and I made it through number 1, and I made it through partway through number 2 before I started this. So, trust me, you get older and shit goes right through your brain like it's, like shit through a goose, as they say. Stormy Scott says, I figured that 5 went back in time and told him it was coming. You think so, but maybe not. And hey, Cameron Hamilton. Excuse me. Stanley Tweedle. I went and looked after I watched the series. I didn't want to spoil it for myself again. I remembered part of it, so I knew what the big reveal was at the end, who is responsible for the apocalypse and all of that. But then I had forgotten the whole thing about the orchestra. So in the book, there's an orchestra that gets together that wants to destroy the world because there's a whole bunch of like supervillains everywhere, and they're always attacking the Umbrella Academy, and they have all these mortal enemies from when they were kids. Battle Marcus, you're just a little behind. Episode 9. I'm going to tell you right now, Battle Marcus, you don't want to stick around here if you don't want to be spoiled, because I am going to spoil, the ending and all that stuff. Excuse me. So, I was wondering about that energy in the jar too. That wasn't in the books, Viking Bitch, so I don't know what was going on with that. So we start off in the 80s where 43 women have 43 children. And you have this billionaire who goes out and buys up 7 of them. He literally buys them. And they don't mention it in the series, on the Netflix series, but these are the only 7 that survive. The rest die off. And that's what in the book, that's what it says, that, they died off, and there was only 7 of them that were left that actually survived. And if that was because Hargreaves was an alien and knew what to do, we don't know exactly. They don't really say that in the book. But also in the series, if you have the other kids that are out there still alive who have abilities, why hasn't the Umbrella Academy kids, why haven't they gone and looked for them at this point? So, yeah. That's what I thought too, Felipe Diaz, is maybe in the show is different and they're going to appear later as villains or more members. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. They really didn't touch on it. There's a few things they didn't touch on, and they kind of went straight into the temporal agency with Hazel and Cha-Cha, and they delved deeply into that one, and kind of that whole thing didn't exist before with the temporal agent, coming back and offering number 5 a job and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me, and the whole Agnes thing. That also wasn't there either. The Agnes and Hazel thing that was going on, it was just kind of a weird thing that they did. Not that I'm saying it's bad. It's just different and weird. I, for one, thought it was pretty damn funny to see Mary J. Blige as an assassin, because she's a singer, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I've seen her as, and she did a great job of it. Excuse me. But I have to say, out of all the characters, Klaus was my favorite. He's different than in the books. In the books, everyone actually has a code name in the book. His was Seance, because he could, of course, commune with the dead. And then there was also he has telekinetic powers as well, which they don't really touch on in the book, that he can actually move things with his mind. And there's some stuff that, wasn't really, like I said, there was stuff that was a little more fleshed out, and there was a lot of stuff that was left out too. So Merck says, I read a bit after I finished UA. So is Leonard the conductor? I don't know. Leonard was a construct for the show. He was the MacGuffin, if you will, in order to get Vanya to have her powers emerge. So Jody says, Dennis, I sort of assumed in the show at least the 36 others may have all died prior to the events in the series. Perhaps they were discreetly removed by the Time Agency. They could have been. They don't really say. And yeah, yes, Stanley Tucci, you're right. Steve Blackman was also the executive producer for Legion and Altered Carbon. Yes, and Fargo. So he is in that, rarefied air company, if you will, of all those shows that we love that are very well done. So that's the reason why. And bye, Battle Marcus. Sorry, I didn't see that you were leaving there. But it's all for the best. Go and finish up the episodes and then come on back, because I really don't want to spoil anything for you, especially the end, because it's a good show. Yeah, Cameron Hamilton. Klaus's charisma does stand out the most. He's the one who he's gone beyond the bullshit at this point and pretty much just wants everything to end. So that's the thing that's pretty funny about it, is he's over the whole superhero stuff. He's over the whole family drama shit as well. All he really wants to do is get high and screw. That's pretty much it. And he might even have a death wish too. We don't really know for sure, but it sounds like it. And I know I'm going to be jumping around a bit. This is, like I said, this is not going to be your typical review, recap, anything like that I normally do. This is more kind of a discussion. This was suggested by you guys out there in the chat. You wanted me to do this. Excuse me. And so, yeah, that is why I'm doing this. And let's see here. Slurmy Scott says The Expanse and Umbrella Academy both filmed in Toronto, new film capital. Who knew? Exactly. Well, they had to get out of Vancouver, because Vancouver is just, they kept using the same locations over and over and over again. So, yeah. Stanley Tucci says, I found the final fight a little clunky. Their attack on Vanya was not very smart. That's actually taken from the book, Stanley. The final fight is clunky, but it is taken from the book. And yes, that's all I'm going to say. In the book, they stop the apocalypse from happening. And yeah, that's all I can say on that one. Also, the guys in the mask didn't hit anything. Are you talking about Hazel and Cha-Cha? Or the you're talking about the yeah, see, that was the other thing too. I kind of wish they had kept the suits from the comic that said temp on them for the temporal agency when the goons come in, basically all the guys with masks on. That would have been a lot better and just a little more funny. But they kind of put them all in like military garb with their masks on. Yeah. But yeah, it was an interesting show. I mean, it's an interesting show. I mean, let me see here. I'm going to go through the episodes really quick. So the first episode is we only see each other at weddings and funerals, which we find out that Hargreaves is dead. And so this brings everyone back together again. And we see what they've been up to. And we see that Luther, number one, is really big now at this point. Rumor has become famous and is now also getting a divorce. Klaus is Klaus. He's checked out of rehab so many times, and he's checked out of rehab again, only to buy heroin as soon as he goes out of rehab. Diego is still fighting criminals. He's running around with his knives. Number 5 pops in after he's been gone all this time, and he actually fights his way back from the future because he wasn't able to come back. His powers weren't working until he came up with an equation in his 60s. Since he's been living all this time in the future and has seen the apocalypse, he comes back and lets them know that the apocalypse is coming, and they only have 8 days. And it's because there's a certain newspaper that prints out. Basically, the newspaper says everything is fine. It's a perfect day. No news to report. Excuse me. And of course, we have Vanya, who doesn't have any powers. So, and also Ben as well. Ben is dead. He's one of the siblings that didn't make it. And yeah, so sad for Ben. But then we also, get to meet Dr. Pogo. Actually, he's just called Pogo in the series. In the book, he's Dr. Pogo. In the books, Hargreaves figured out a way to make all chimps verbal and increase their brain power. So you have chimpanzees that are running around doing jobs. They are police officers. They are fry cooks. They are doctors. All this kind of stuff. It's kind of creepy, but also kind of interesting at the same time. They didn't do that for the series. They just made Pogo the only sentient, the only talkative chimp, if you will, not sentient, talkative. Jody says, and the way they stopped it was different. They took elements from Dallas and wove it into the first season. Yeah, exactly. They took a lot of elements from Dallas and wove it into the first season, and disappearing, basically making them all kids, and then disappearing into time. Yeah, it was kind of a weird approach. I don't know where they're going with it. I kind of think I know where they're going with it, but I'm more likely going to be surprised by it. Viking Bitch says, I think the way the family always deals with Vanya was to lock her up and knock her down. It didn't occur to them to try and any nicer approach, which may have actually disarmed her. I bought it. Yeah, the whole thing with Vanya, and that's what this thing was mainly about. The Netflix series was dealing more with family dynamics and how, the others all had powers, and they pretty much treated Vanya like shit because she didn't have powers. And Hargreaves did too, even though Hargreaves knew that she had powers, but he basically screwed with her brain to, and granted, he was trying to protect the world from her, but if he had actually trained her like the others to use her powers, and be nice to her in a way and actually make her into a functional adult, he wouldn't have brought about the apocalypse. So really, it's Hargreaves' fault that he brings about the apocalypse because of what he did to Vanya. Yeah. And Jody says, it worked for the story, but imagine if instead of making her forget, Hargreaves asked Allison to simply use her power to compel Vanya to stop killing her. Yeah. That the whole thing with Allison and as rumor, and using her power on her child as well, that was a little fucked up. And then also, I mean, mom is a robot. Sure, that works. They omitted Hargreaves' helper, if you will. He it was a little bit of the racist at the time. I know where Gerard Way was going with this. He was trying to harken back to like the like Johnny Quest kind of stuff, and basically that Hargreaves was this old school kind of guy who had a servant, like a manservant kind of thing. I knew where he was going, but it wouldn't fly with today's audiences having a manservant kind of thing. Especially a Sikh, and that's I can see the reason that was the reason why they didn't bring that person in. Mork says, according to what I read, the serum wasn't what changed number one. Yeah, you know what? I didn't hear about that one, Morks. All I know is that they were saying, from what Pogo says, is that Luther, number one, he has more in common with Pogo then and that was with his blood. So I don't know what was going on with that. I mean, we knew there was a serum, but I don't know if that actually changed him or if it was something else that changed him. In the book, he actually goes to Mars on a mission, almost dies, and has to have his head transplanted onto the body of a gorilla. So in the series here, yeah, we have him being changed into like an ape-like thing from this injection to save his life. And it just, there's a lot of unanswered questions, shall we say. I don't know if they knew where they were going with it or if they're just going to do this in season 2 or what's going on. Yeah, Jody says, yeah, if Hargreaves was a bit more outwardly empathetic and kind of more like Professor X, he might have, but it fit his personality to just suppress her powers. Yeah, he was scared. He was literally scared of her. When you see that in the series, when she essentially gets pissed at him and she blows up all the glasses and cuts him. She actually uses his monocle to cut him, and he gets scared of her. And that's when he decides, well, first he locks her up in this room that she can't use her powers, supposedly, and then develops a plan to suppress her powers. So, yeah, very, very weird. At least number one got to show off his body in one scene without the costume, Stormy Scott says. Yes, and I know that's most important to you. Penn Farm Girl says, stopped in to hit the like. I muted already since I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I thought you were doing one in a one at a time like Future Man, but I understand why it's the entire season. I'll watch the rest once I'm caught up. Thanks for the review, Dennis. You're welcome, Penn Farm Girl. And yeah, go ahead and watch the rest of it at your leisure. Like I said, it's just very, very hard to do this one at a time, just because it's everyone's already watched it, quite honestly. Future Man, I have to convince people to watch it. And so going episode by episode, Future Man's just a little bit of a different animal altogether. So where was I? So episode 2, we had Run Boy Run, which, after number 5 comes back and tells what's going on, basically tells his story about what happened with time travel with Vanya. 5 has that eye that he needs to find out who owns the eye. And that's when we meet Hazel and Cha-Cha, who are after him. And we don't know why at that point either. But they shoot up a donut shop. Episode 3, we have Extraordinary. And Mom is on the fritz, kind of. They find out that she was there when Hargreaves died, but did nothing to help him. So, they call a family meeting. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And that was the other thing too, is Pogo comes off as kind of, he comes off as an asshole because he has a lot of secrets that he's keeping from the kids as well. And yes, Jody, that monocle, I forgot all about the monocle. In the comics, there's a lot more to that monocle than just being a little eyeglass thing. It actually, you can see people's true powers and a lot of other things as well. So that Diego dropped it off the pier after he had taken it means a lot. I know that, well, if they're going back in time, then nothing matters in this first season because other than the apocalypse is coming, they need to stop it. So we'll see what happens there. LC3566 just dropped by to say hello. Good luck with the channel. I'm subbed. Thank you. All right. Thanks a lot. Viking Bitch says, that is true. I'm not sure why Future Man is such a hard sell, but it is so funny. Go watch it, Chucklefucks. Exactly. Especially since you get a word like Chucklefucks out of Future Man, And yes, Jody, Sir Reginald can use it to do more than just help his vision. That's true. That is true. Yes, there is a great dance scene in Stormy Scott and episode. And there's actually a couple of good dance scenes. My favorite, of course, is between number one and Rumor when they're out in the park, and he gets his body back, his original body back for the dance. And yeah, it was actually really good, really well done. That's actually, I think, my favorite number. And you can tell Steve Blackman, his influence, I believe, from Legion with all their dance numbers that they've had. I mean, come on. The dance off in season 2. My God. That was awesome. I'm talking about Legion there, season 2. So, what else do we have here? Episode 4, we have Man on the Moon. And we find out what happened to Luther, how his transformation happened. And also that Klaus has been kidnapped by Hazel and Cha-Cha. They're trying to figure out where number 5 is. And of course, they've picked the wrong person to kidnap and try and torture because he's kind of into it. At one point, Cha-Cha is strangling him. And he's like, yes, I'm almost there. And she looks down. She's like, oh my God, what the hell is that? Because, of course, yeah, he's getting off on it. Yeah, Klaus is a little bit on the damage side. And we see that damage. I mean, come on. Freaking Hargreaves locks a kid in a fucking mausoleum to get his powers to emerge and to use them properly instead of guiding him through it. Instead, he just goes, deal with it, you know? Cameron Hilton says Ellen Page's wife coordinated the first and third dance scene. Oh, nice. That's kind of cool. Slummy Scott said, love that number. Also watched a video with them talking about learning it. He is English with a heavy accent. Yeah, I know I've seen him in other stuff, and I remember him having an English accent. I want to say he was in something like a medieval war pick or something like that. And yeah, I remember that. So, hey, Movie Fanobi. Yes, the Fanobich is here. So, LC3566, I love channels like this and watch Dennis regularly on another channel. All the best. Thank you, LC3566. So glad you can join us. Black Sails. Thank you, Slurmy Scott. That's where he was, on Black Sails. I forgot all about that. I watched the first season of Black Sails, and after that I kind of lost interest. So yeah. Yeah, Viking Bitch. I liked how they explained how the kids are all damaged, and yeah, you really can't come out of that. I mean, Hargreaves was so focused on stopping the apocalypse that he never thought that what he was doing was the cause of the apocalypse. So, yeah, it's a very, very, very fucked up thing, honestly. Cause and effect, if you will. And again, time travel. I love time travel stories. So when you're dealing with time travel and a time bureau as well, the whole thing with the time bureau and him and number 5, like having to figure out how to solve the Hindenburg disaster to make it actually happen. And by giving the pilot food poisoning so that someone else would come in and crash the ship. It was really, really weird. But Movie Fanobi says he reminded me of Walter Bishop on Fringe in relation to children and the bigger threat. Yeah. Mork says cause and effect, we can relate. That's my jab. I don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's kind of funny, for the 5th episode, it's called number 5, and we actually get number 5's background, what happened to him, and his decades of being alone in this wasteland that's left over, and him falling in love with a mannequin and why he, he talks to this man. He's lost his mind is really what's going on. And how in his 60s he finally ends up meeting with a representative of the Time Bureau, and they recruit him in order to become an assassin through time. So he literally travels through time. And that's the other thing too. So Hazel and Cha-Cha are part of this group. They have a briefcase that is a time travel device, and they're not supposed to leave it out of their grasp, if you will. But Hazel just is tired of carrying it, so he puts it in the vent. And when Klaus goes to escape, what does he find? He finds the briefcase, takes it with him, and ends up disappearing. Yeah. There's so many things to this. Excuse me. There are so many God. There are so many moving parts to this that really shouldn't work, but they do. And Klaus, taking the time machine or the time briefcase, traveling back to Vietnam in 1969, I believe is what it was, and right in the middle of the Vietnam conflict, in a barracks, and being recruited essentially for a year. So he's fighting for a year with the U.S. Army against the Viet Cong, and loses pretty much. He finds a guy there that he loves and who loves him back, who ends up dying in his arms. And that's actually kind of a fucked up one too. You see them on the front line, and there's a bullet that whizzes by, and Klaus is like, wow, that was close. And then he looks over, and his paramour there has caught the bullet in his chest and is dying. And he's screaming for medics, and of course this guy is dying. And he can never call him back because he's always so high on stuff. He needs to clean up in order to contact the dead. That's the reason why he's high most of the time, because every time he's high, he can't use his powers. So every time he sobers up, he starts seeing dead people again. And that was the other thing that was actually pretty damn funny about it too, was when he's tied up with Hazel and Cha-Cha, and he starts detoxing and sobers up. And that's when Ben shows up, his brother who died, and Ben is coaching him basically on what to do. And all the people that Hazel and Cha-Cha have killed are kind of haunting them, trying to, they're basically pissed at Hazel and Cha-Cha, and now they're using Klaus in order to, get back at them. And I thought it was just pretty damn funny that they did it that way. Jody says, didn't it kind of remind you of what happened to Will Smith's character in I Am Legend? Didn't he also start talking to and crushing on Meg? Yeah, that was actually taken, Jody, from the original Omega Man with Charlton Heston, because Charlton Heston did the same thing. And that's also based on I Am Legend, the book. No one's actually ever done I Am Legend like the book, honestly. And Charlton Heston and Omega Man was losing it, and he was talking to mannequins all the time too, and busts and whatever, was out there. So that's where that was taken from. So completely different. This one, number 5, that was the only mannequin. He knew that mannequin was his. That, was just kind of a weird thing. Even going so far as to go busting into Gimbals and picking her up. Yeah. Yeah, Stanley Tweedle. His brother Ben came through most of the time, even when he was high. Exactly. Excuse me. And yeah, that was the whole thing, Jody, is they really fleshed out Klaus's character from the book. The book, he's a little bit more of a narcissist. And so also the other thing that's different from the book too is in the book, all the characters are white. Okay. I that was kind of a weird thing when I'm sitting there, I'm reading it, and I kind of forgot about it, that they didn't have any people of color, and supposedly this is 43 random women around the world that had kids, and yet they're all white kids. And I was like, all right, at least that was kind of a good switch over, is you had kids from all these different nationalities, and that was actually good. I'm glad they actually corrected that part of it. A little bit more realistic, if you will, especially if you're having it happen all around the world. On Andrej, I believe we are getting a season 2. This one, everyone's been talking about Umbrella Academy. It's out there in the world right now, and I'm hearing about it all over the place. So everyone's watching it. Everyone's talking about it. I'm fairly sure we're getting a season 2. As a matter of fact, while I'm here, let's take a look and see. Season 2 of Umbrella Academy. Let's see what anybody says here. Everything we know, everything we know about the Umbrella Academy season 2 from 17 magazine. No one said anything as of yet. It's too soon to tell. I mean, it was just released 2 weeks ago or last week. It was just released last week. Is that right? I believe it was last week. So yeah, it's a little too soon to tell. But I'm fairly sure that they're getting a season 2. So Stanley Tweedle says, but if they were bought soon after birth, they should all have the same accent. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Well, they did all have the same accent. So I don't know if anyone else had a different accent. Except for Klaus. But Klaus, I think, was just kind of putting it on for airs, if you will. Slurmy Scott says, don't forget to tell us about the large lady who keeps appearing bank hostage on the bus with Klaus and the mother who invites. Yeah, I don't know what that was about, to tell you the truth, Slurmy. You were the one who caught that. I didn't. That this woman keeps appearing. She is one of the bank hostages. She's on the bus with Klaus. She's actually the one that smiles at Klaus before he disappears. And she's the mother who invites Five to the birthday party as well at the bowling alley before all hell breaks loose. So I want to say she's part of the temporal agency, because she appears all the times that some kind of time travel stuff happens, or the temporal agency is involved. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the head of the temporal agency, to tell you the truth. Sorry. My neighbors are home, so Pepper decided that that's a great time to bark, because she's an asshole that way. And of course she does it from the couch, as lazy as can be. So, well, Klaus sounded more British because he is British. And I think, it fit the character. But I think, he was doing it to put on airs, if you will. Movie Finobi says, also, they could be hijacking her. She seemed very surprised on the bus. Actually, she didn't seem too surprised. Her hat blew off, and she kind of looked around, and she had like a little smile, and she went about her day. Yeah, Viking, but she did not like the bath that she was forced to take after rolling around in something dead. Yeah. Hence the really sad look on her face. Movie Finobi says, but she saw them at the bowling alley, and then the agents show up. Yeah, but she saw Klaus there too. That's why I'm thinking she's part of the temporal agency. She's got to be part of the temporal agency. Okay, what's with the T? Okay, I don't know what the T is all about. But all right, let's see what else we get. Jody says it made it feel a little more real somehow, as opposed to them going for some young, pretty waitress. Oh, for Agnes? Yeah. But that whole Agnes sidebar thing was just weird. Oh, okay. Got it. No, she already got one earlier, so she's not getting another one. Yeah, that whole sidebar with Hazel going to run away with Agnes and falling in love with her for donuts, and then the whole vegan donut thing. I mean, come on. If you don't want to eat meat, then don't eat donuts. I'm sorry. It's just, vegan donuts, why are you going to torture the rest of us? Because honestly, that's just nasty. In the comics, Hazel and Cha-Cha are both men. So, yeah, who knows? They could have been a couple. I don't remember. I still have to go through the second one again. What meat goes into donuts? It's the lard that they use in order to make donuts taste so damn good. What do you think it's fried in? Yeah. Stanley Twill says, maybe I'm ageist, but I found Hazel too young for Agnes. Maybe. Yeah, it was a weird sidebar. That's all I'm going to say. Yes, I know it added a little bit more to it, and we got this scene with Hazel and Cha-Cha and Agnes being put over the spa, the heart-shaped spa on the chair and all that stuff. It was weird. Yeah. Yeah, Hazel likes grandmas. Ugh. Ugh. Yeah. No, Mufino, she actually is. I've seen the actress before. I can't remember her name. As a matter of fact, I do have her. I have the list up here. So, Sheila McCarthy. So Sheila McCarthy has been around for a while, and as a matter of fact, that's where I remember her from. She was in Die Hard 2. She was the reporter from Die Hard 2. And she's also in The Day After Tomorrow. She's been in tons of stuff. She was even in Star Trek Discovery. Orphan Black. Let's see. So going back, like way back, like I said, I remember her from Die Hard 2. That's where I've seen her the most because I see Die Hard 2 all the time on TV. She was also in Free Willy, the TV series, if you're into that. She was big in the 90s, 80s and 90s, man. She was just all over the place. And she was in everything. So, yeah, but she was born in, let's see here, 1956. So, there you go. That makes her 64, 63, somewhere around there. If my math, on the fly is not working correctly, which is probably right. 62. There we go. Thank you. So, yeah, and Hazel is probably in his 30s, so she's double his age. It's just a reversal of, the thing that happens all the time in Hollywood where they get that, mummified man who's dating the 20-year-old. I think they did that, Stanley Tweedle. I can't remember if Cha-Cha was supposed to be in the Hazel or not. Are you talking about the book or in the show? In the show, they basically, they were partners, and that was the reason why, she felt kind of betrayed. But yeah, in the book, I can't remember if they were or not. Like I said, I didn't get through all of the second one. I was a little too preoccupied with other stuff. Where are we? Also here. Jody says, didn't they flesh out all the more principal characters? They were kind of more plot driven in the comics compared to the show. Yeah, it was a lot more plot driven in the show than it was in the comics than the show. The show, like I said, dealt more with family matters, if you will, and family issues. So, exactly. Yeah, she does look great for 62. So, hey, you know what? Some guys like the whole waitress outfit thing and the cosplay stuff. So to each their own. Movie Finobi says, as a time traveler, maybe he's a romantic with the past. We don't know. Stanley Tweedle says, but you're right. I'm a hypocrite about the age difference when it's reversed. Yeah, I was okay. The age difference didn't bother me. It was the fact that they kind of went off on this tangent with it, and it was interesting, but at the same time, it was kind of unnecessary. And I got that's where they were trying to go with the conflict between Hazel and Cha-Cha, and to give him a reason to stop the apocalypse. So, no, Mufinobi. I only cosplay as. No, I was gonna be mean on that one. I was gonna be really mean. I'm not going to. I only cosplay as Jason Momoa every now and then. And as somebody who asked earlier, this is the Deadpool T-shirt. So there you go. Jody says, well, accents can kind of change over time if they are separated in their teens and live in different places. Their accents could plausibly diverse from one another. Or they could develop over time, kind of like Madonna. Madonna has become a British, she has a British accent now. Where she got that from, I have no idea. But Dennis sometimes cosplays as an astronaut on Saturdays. No, I'm never taking Astro's job. Astro will not. Morks has got to go taking the kids to the park. Is that like taking the kids to the pool? See you, Morks. Have fun. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, Mufinobi, I thought, I don't know if you heard about this, but I guess some Girl Scout took the Samoa cookies and put a topless Jason Momoa on all those boxes, and I guess her sales took off like hotcakes with all the moms. Yeah, I guess the story has been making the rounds. Slurmy Scott says women live longer than men, so go for an older woman, and you don't leave a widow. Bye, Marks. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Smart business strategy is what Stanley Tweedle says. Yeah. So going back to the show, where was I on the episodes here? So we talked about number 5. The Day That Wasn't is number 6, and that is when we see number 5 has accepted a job in upper management in the temporal agency, and that was kind of interesting. He ends up, destroying part of the temporal agency in order to get away, and also we find out that he has sent Hazel and Cha-Cha to kill each other, posing as a temporal agency and sending messages to each of them. And that was one thing I did like was that the temporal agency, if they know where you are, and usually you have a tracker in you, they can send you a message via a vacuum tube, the old vacuum tube thing, and it pops up in different places. So if you're by a vending machine, it pops up in the vending machine. If you're in a hotel, it pops up in the shower. If you're number 5 and you're in the bowling alley, it pops up out of the ball return. Things like that. I thought that was actually kind of ingenious. That was a good point. A good little thing that they did there. So Stormy Scott says, still wondering, where does the temporal agency get its employees from? Throughout time. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, Viking Bitch, I heard about that one too, but the Girl Scouts who just stood outside a pot dispensary, and yeah. Got to know your audience. Yeah. And I did like how God, I'm blanking on her name now, who was the head of the temporal agency, and or not the head of the temporal agency. She was one of the managers. Was it Grace? Grace. No, Grace is mom. Now I'm blanking on her name. Man, I'm telling you, this is what happens when you're doing this stuff live, and it just was horrible. Is it Madame Bellevue? No, Madame Bellevue. Eh. Well, anyway, the woman who recruits Five, the handler. Yes, the handler. There we go. Thank you. How she actually stuck a tracker in one of the candies, and I love the candies too. She goes, try one of the candies, and he does, and she goes, what does it taste like? The 1950s. And she goes, yeah, we have people that are actually able to distill what it was like in the 1950s into a candy. And he takes a whole pocket full of them, and one of them, of course, has a tracker in it. You know, Mufinobi, donuts are not a bad idea, and I do have a Dunkin' Donuts right near me, so there we go. That might be a good after stream break. Excuse me. Jody says, I think the actor playing Klaus was Irish, wasn't he? At least he sounded Irish in his interviews. They didn't have all similar accents. The story still worked. Yeah, you know what? I don't mind that people have the accents. So, yeah, Mufinobi, we're getting a lot of Dunkin' Donuts out this way. So, yes, I do need a treat as well. No, her ears didn't even perk up. I'm kind of surprised. You know why? Because it wasn't directed at her. So she doesn't care if it's used. I noticed I've tried different things to see if directing things at her or just talking in general piques her interest. And there's a couple of words that she knows. But yeah, it's got to be directed at her, or she doesn't flinch at all. This show makes you want a donut. Yeah. I thought Klaus, the actor, was Scotsman. He could be. So you just finished watching, huh, Battle Marcus? What'd you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. So in the book, I think I'm far enough along now in the podcast here where I can spoil the comic for you. At the end of Apocalypse Suite, the first book, which is 6 issues, yes, the apocalypse does happen, but it's stopped because Seance stops that big chunk of moon that was coming down at the end of the Netflix series. Since he's telekinetic, he actually stops it from smashing into the earth. And there's a lot of shit that has gone on afterwards in book 2, Dallas, where you're seeing the aftermath of a lot of damage. People have died. Vanya is kind of her brain is broken, if you can say. And it's kind of a shitty thing what Allison does is when she finds out that she's awake and kind of conscious. And Allison, of course, can't talk. You know, she's writing it down. She takes Vanya in a wheelchair, straps her in, and puts her in a bank full of televisions and puts on all the news of all the destruction that she's done and forces Vanya to watch in the comic, which is really fucked up. I mean, just really fucked up. So, yeah. And in the meantime, when all this is happening, Klaus, or Seance, as he's called, is now a celebrity because, of course, he stopped the world from ending. Excuse me. So he is Irish. There we go. Yeah, it is a fun show, Battle Marcus. And so for those people that are still with me on this, in this rambling diatribe of a review, this is probably going down as one of my worst reviews of this. It's a good dynamic of people and also of family life. Even though these people aren't related, they are still family. They grew up together. There was a lot of shitty things that they did to each other, and that was done to them. And it's kind of like the X-Men in a way, but a lot more harsh, a lot more real life, if you will, and also as if the X-Men grew up together from when they were babies instead of just coming in as recruits later on when they're teenagers or adults and things like that. And your Professor X is not benevolent. He's an asshole. He really is. And only has one thing on his mind is to stop the apocalypse, and he's going to do anything he can in order to stop that. Yes, I am. Damn kids. I used to be able to do Grandpa Simpson's voice a long time ago. 5 bees for a nickel. Because we had pictures of bees on the pennies at the time. Eepa! Exactly. Can't do it anymore. I don't know what happened. I think something broke in my voice one time when I was doing it, and I can never do Grandpa Simpson ever again. I used to do this all the time with friends of mine that were, when we were back in college, and we were all science geeks, and we're trying to go out and have a good time, trying to go out and drink and whatnot, and they start talking about school and about science and all this stuff. And well, I think that, and I just go into full on Grandpa Simpson and just start doing really mindless anecdotes about nothing. Yeah. I just saw a guy being torn in half. Okay. Thank you. Jody says, I think they meant for Hazel's subplot to add layers to his character, but I get you. I wouldn't have taken away from the story that much if included it. Yeah. Yeah, and having them go back in time also brings your kids back in as well, and you can see, you can bring back Hargreaves at this point, because Hargreaves is dead. In the comics, you have no more Hargreaves except in flashbacks. Sure, you can keep doing that, but it gets annoying, especially to a subset of viewers. A lot of us don't like flashbacks, you know. I used to do Grandpa Simpson's voice, Slurmy Scott. Don't get dirty on that one. So yeah, having the actor come back and play, Hargreaves. Yeah, Justin Min. No, excuse me, that's Ben Hargreaves. Sorry about that. I just stopped at Hargreaves. Colm Fiore. There we go. Who was, I believe he was in a really bad Star Trek movie, wasn't he? No, he was in Thor. That's right. He was in the first Thor. You're Thor. You should see my legs. Sorry, it's a bad joke. Really bad joke. He's been in a lot of stuff. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, King Lear, just lots and lots of stuff. And he had a lot of prosthetic makeup on. I remembered that the guy looked familiar, but I couldn't tell, and he had some prosthetic makeup on him. So there we go. I'm looking forward to him returning, to tell you the truth. And I want to see more of him, to tell you the truth, as Hargreaves, so we can see what he's been doing. Yes, they're going to be kids, but if they can find kids as good as number 5, the kid playing number 5, and have them be having their minds, your adult minds, in a kid's body, that could be interesting. So, but yeah, so this whole thing of family dynamic mixed with superhero genre, mixed with the apocalypse and time travel as well, because you have the Time Travel Bureau, and you just have this really nutty concoction all thrown together. It makes for an interesting view. And again, it's that whole thing I keep talking about. We don't want to keep seeing the same cookie cutter shit over and over and over again. We want to see different stuff. And that's what Netflix is bringing us, is they're bringing us different stuff. And I want to see more of this, tell you the truth. It's the same thing like Doom Patrol. I know I turned on Viking Bitch and Movie Fanobi to Doom Patrol, and they are now converts, as I've seen. I'm sorry for adding another show to your list, but it's a weird fucking show, but it's really good at the same time, and it's well acted, it's fun, and you have just as much of a dynamic of interesting personalities, and in Jane's case, 64 of them, working together, that this actually works. Stormy Scott says, I thought number 5 was a 20-year-old kid, 20-year-old playing a kid like usual. Turns out he's a kid and only 16 now. Yeah, he's probably gonna have a growth spurt in the next 2 years and not be able to play number 5 anymore. I'm glad you love DP there, Stanley Tweedle. Yeah, Jody. 5's acting was actually pretty damn good. He was. How can I say this? He commanded all the scenes that he was in, even with the older actors that he was with, and I think that's what it was. Is they really had to. He really had to take control of those scenes because he is supposed to be a 60-year-old man, or excuse me, 65-year-old man in a child's body, and unless you can pull that off, if you can't do it, then yeah, it's going to screw up a lot of things. And yes, Jody, Doom Patrol is a hell of a lot more entertaining than Titans. And again, that's because of Akiva Goldsman on Titans. There we go. Yeah, you can totally tell the difference in quality just based on who's writing stuff, who's running stuff. And again, sorry for the coughing. It's going to be a long way to go before I get this crap out of my chest. Jody says, Dennis, you turned me on to Jean-Claude Van Johnson. You have good taste. If you say a show is worth watching, I take your word for it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying not to steer you guys towards shitty shows. So yeah, it's like I said, Gotham isn't for everybody. Gotham is one of those dirty little pleasures of mine, and it's not for everybody. It's one of those shows that I can say you can take it or leave it. The other stuff that I covered, though, is all I consider stuff that you can watch. I would recommend easily to anybody. And yes, and the Tudyk, exactly, Tweedle. He freaking makes that series, honestly. And I'm so disappointed that Jean-Claude Van Johnson did not get a second half of the season or another season at all. The shitty show channel I used to sub there. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. I mean, you need to take chances with some stuff and reach out. And like I said, especially with this channel, I don't care about views and stuff. Would I like everything to get like 1,000 views and all that kind of stuff? Great. Yes. But that's not my driving force here. I'm not making any money off of this, at the moment. And that's not my driving force behind it. It's just, I want to talk about this stuff. And this is a forum for me to talk about this stuff to people that like this stuff as well. And, I don't care if it's not getting, if some, my Future Man, some of my Future Man stuff's only getting 20, 30 views, something like that. But it's out there. That's the whole thing. I want to talk about that show because that show deserves so much more love than what it's getting. And I wasn't able to do that where I was. So Viking Bitch says, I did like the first season of Gotham, but I lost interest. Yeah, it's like I said, it's not for everybody. Jody says, 5's actor made me believe he was 50-year-old man in a teen's body. That was some great acting on his part. Yeah, he was. Excuse me. And yes, Gotham does have a really damn good Penguin right now. Stanley Tweedle says, I prefer the smaller chat, even if it's if that is not good for you, Dennis. No, I actually am fine with the chat, honestly. Yeah, I'm trying to. I just realized this morning as I was walking the dog, I was horking up some more stuff. I'm like, God, will this mucus ever end out of the lungs? It just keeps going on and on and on. So, yeah, the actor who plays the Penguin, it's kind of funny. He was on The Walking Dead as this kid who ends up. So Carol ended up fixing his leg. He had a broken, or his arm. He had a broken arm, and on the show. So Carol ends up fixing his arm, and we thought those two had gotten eaten. That's what happened. But then when they went to Terminus, is what it was called. That was Crosby, Denise Crosby's Lincoln. When they're sitting over the trough and we were seeing them, they're getting ready to get beheaded. He's actually back again in that one. And I guess that was just before he started filming the first season of Gotham. And they flew him in just for that scene alone because they wanted to tie it in to what happened to those characters. And that's when we saw him again. So he's been in 2 episodes. That's where I first saw him. I forget his middle name is Robin. That's what I remember. It was just kind of a weird thing. Watch Titans. Do it, Fanobi. Actually, I've got to go back and rewatch the last episode. I guess the after credit scene, there is a Superboy tease in it. So I've got to go and watch that. So I've if you guys are going to watch anything on DC Universe other than Doom Patrol, I would suggest watching Young Justice. Young Justice is actually really good. The animated stuff. They have a new season 3. So start at season 1 and just work your way through. I don't know, Mufinobi, if DC Universe has the rights to all their movies. I don't think they do because I believe it's Warner Brothers, and I know Warner Brothers is starting their own streaming service as well. So I had mentioned this to Steve Nyman on Twitter this morning. He asked me about the Twilight Zone series, and I basically tweeted back to him, and I told him I think that this subscription services for streaming services has reached a saturation point at this point, and people aren't going to buy it if you have only 1 or 2 shows that are going to be drawing people in. CBS, I'm sorry, the CBS library is pretty much shit, and I'm not going to pay for CBS All Access just to watch The Twilight Zone, even if Jordan's doing it. So yeah, I can't do it. And for DC Universe, though, when I saw Doom Patrol, I was like, all right, this is worth it. And Swamp Thing that's coming up, and DC, Young Justice, and all their backlog of stuff that they have. Their animated stuff is really, really good. Excuse me. Yeah, you're right, Fanobi. Titans was just way too dark. And granted, some of the later stuff in the 80s does get dark. The Marv Wolfman series in the 80s when it first started was fairly dark, especially the Terra series. And especially the whole thing with Deathstroke and Tara. That's, oh, man. That's one of those storylines where it's creepy. There's so many things that are in there that are just wrong, and to have it done so early in the 80s, because he started that in 1980 if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was one of those storylines where you're just like, fuck. And that's why they keep replaying it over and over again, why they keep doing some kind of version of it. So because it was that fucked up. They're actually doing it again in Young Justice. They actually rewrote Tara, her character in Young Justice. So, season 3. Stormy Scott says we have we have to masted the free month or 7-day trial game. Oh, we've all mastered. Okay, there we go. The free month or 7-day trial game. I will wait till the season of shows are available, like Doom Patrol, then binge for free. Yeah, that's what a lot of people do too. Yeah. But with this said, if you're on the fence about watching Umbrella Academy, go and watch it. I mean, you have Netflix, go and watch it. It's worth the watch, and pretty damn good stuff. Yeah, I got what you said there, Slurmy. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get through it. You know, I have to see what it is in the context as I'm reading it. Yeah, Viking Bitch. I knew that you guys were on the fence about it too until I was doing the reviews. So yes, Umbrella Academy is definitely a recommend. Go and watch it. Can't wait for season 2 to come out. Take care of a little bit of business. If you guys like what you see, hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button here or the dislike button. Either way. Robin Lord Taylor, thank you. He's the penguin. Yes, I knew his name was Robin in there someplace. And if you're still on the fence about whether or not to subscribe or not, you're going to see some videos up in this area. They are going to pull from my library of videos based on the taste of what you have been watching already. And if you like what you see, then you can hit the subscribe button that's up here as well. You can find my schedule up on suspendedfanimation.com. I need to change it out at the moment to update it. And Future Man is probably going to be at 6 p.m. tonight. Slurmy Scott. I haven't put it up there. Yes, but 6 p.m. tonight. What else? I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook too. So I have all those things up there. I know a lot of people don't use Facebook anymore. I'm old. I like using Facebook. So there you go. And I love my juice. Thanks, LC3566. Great channel. Like the background action figures. Thank you. I am everywhere at this point on social media. I try to be anyway. So, whose bottom is supposed to be smashed? I don't want to know. Yeah, Jody. Young Justice season 3 is good. It's am I digging it as much as the other stuff that's on there? Not really. It's good. Whereas Doom Patrol, honestly, if they had dropped an entire season of Doom Patrol, I would have skipped this podcast and be binging it right now, to tell you the truth, because it is it's actually really that good. It's everyone asks me Umbrella Academy or Doom Patrol, and I'd have to say Doom Patrol edges out Umbrella Academy, and mainly it's because of Alan Tudyk, really, just because he is so fucking snarky and breaks the fourth wall and is talking to us and does it in a way that's actually pretty damn funny. Thanks, guys. And thank you for everyone in the chat who showed up. Stanley Tweedles, Slurmy Scott, Sculpted Leather Art by Viking Bitch, Cameron Hamilton, Jody, Mark Maginot, excuse me, LC3566, Fanobi, Movie Fanobi, Battle Marcus. Glad you can join us afterwards here after finishing up there. And to everyone else that was in the chat here that I may or may, Andrej Marek, there we go. And I know there were a few other people that had to step out. So I know Pen Farm Girl popped in and popped back out again, and a couple of other people. So thank you all for joining me in the chat. And I will let you go. Don't forget to take a look at the videos, hit the subscribe button. And other than that, I will let you guys go, and I will see you at 6 p.m. tonight for Future Man. And don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may find out that you're responsible for starting the apocalypse with a violin.